Greetings and welcome to the Ashland New Plays Festival Play4Keeps podcast. We hope you are surviving through this stressful and difficult time and are finding moments of joy and connectedness when you can. Today, we are presenting a conversation with Nate Eppler and Stephanie Alison Walker. Nate Eppler is a playwright and new play advocate, currently serving as the director of the Ingram New Works project and a playwright-in-residence for the Nashville Repertory Theatre. He was a winner at ANPF 2018 for his play Primary User, which is scheduled to receive its world premiere this summer at the San Francisco Playhouse. Stephanie Alison Walker is a playwright and screenwriter. Her plays are known for mining humor and darkness, personalizing the political, and exploring the strength of women. She is a two-time ANPF winning playwright for 2016's The Madres and 2018's The Abuelas. Both plays received their world premieres at Chicago's Teatro Vista. Now, without any further ado, a conversation between Nate and Stephanie.
Hi, Nate. Oh, wait, that
Hi,
was 10
Stephanie.
seconds. There's a counter here. Okay, hi, Nate.
Hi, Stephanie.
I had to say it again because I didn't wait the recommended 10 seconds to say it. I was just too excited. So, how's it going in this pandemic?
Well, it's different every day. Let's see. So we're recording at the end of March. Today's like literally the last day of March. And
Oh my gosh, I love it that you're actually saying when we are. So, yes, March.
March yeah,
31st.
because like I don't know when you and I and I guess maybe like our parents, I don't know who else would listen to this, but whenever whoever is listening to this, I would imagine that like every single day over the past 2 or 3 weeks has felt like its own little year. I mean March has been, it feels like it's been hundreds of days long, and so there's no telling where things are a week from now or 2 weeks from now when this is out. I am safe and sound in Nashville. Where are you right now?
Los Angeles. And this is my family's 19th day of our own quarantine.
Yeah.
March 13th, I was supposed to fly to Chicago with my kids to visit family, right. And we canceled the trip the night before. Even though my doctor had said, oh, it's fine, but things were changing day by day. And that was the last day, March 13th was the last day of LAUSD being in session at Los Angeles Unified School District.
Right.
So I have 2 young kids in kindergarten and 4th grade. So we had actually decided to keep them out of school that day and stay home. And I think actually that day was the last day that I went to the grocery store. And then we just have been kind of here. I had taken the kids for like walks and hikes, but then last week we got hit with sickness here in our house, so we really haven't left at all. But anyway, 19 days, and it feels like many years.
Yeah. Hey, and just to be clear, you were saying dealing with sickness in your house, but you know that nobody in your house has the coronavirus right now, right?
Oh, no, we don't. So, right. I had strep throat. I got hit. Well, my son, my 9-year-old had it. I nursed him through it, and it was not too bad for him, actually. And then he got over it relatively quickly without any kind of medication. And then I got it really badly. And I thought, whatever this is will work its way through me as it did my son, but that wasn't the case. So I have been improving thanks to penicillin. So grateful for penicillin. And then my husband got sick, and he has symptoms that are correlating with mild coronavirus symptoms, but we just don't know. So He's been separated from the family. Like he's in the bedroom now. I'm on the couch. Like I keep, I'm sanitizing everything. I'm trying to keep him in that room so that he doesn't bring his germs out into the rest of the house. It's very difficult. Especially when we're like, is this a really bad cold or is this maybe the coronavirus? And we just don't know. So obviously tests aren't available for people who have mild symptoms.
Right.
Unless you're like a celebrity or a politician or very wealthy, apparently. So I wish that we could all test ourselves to know whether or not we were carriers, you know?
Yeah.
That would be very helpful. But anyway, right now he's okay.
I didn't know that about, oh, I'm sorry.
No, I just wanted to just spot like he's okay. Like he's okay right now. I think more than anything for anybody who's sick during this time, because even I didn't know what I had before I knew I had strep. It was terrifying. It's so scary. So once I found out it was strep, I was like, oh, thank God, like all this anxiety left my body and I could get better.
Yeah. Well, it's terrifying not knowing. And I'm so sorry you've got that in your house right now. And I'm so sorry about your husband. Like, I hope he feels better. But I mean, like having to separate inside houses right now. I mean, oh my gosh. Like this is not the only story I've heard like that today, let alone like in the past week. And the more that we're facing all of that, the more like destabilizing all this feels for sure. I mean, it's so the whole thing is just like terrifying to kind of like not know right now, but it just keeps hitting closer and closer and closer. So you're like, are you working at all right now? I gotta be honest, I'm not. I'm having such a hard time writing right now. Are you finding time to write right now?
I am finding it gosh, there's so many answers to this one question because, when all of this started, we're like, okay, I guess we're going to be home for a while now. Then everybody was talking about like, use this time to write your greatest masterpiece. And, all of that stuff was going on. And I started feeling kind of that pressure. But at the same time, I had decided that I would not write a new play this year. That instead of writing a new play, I would be adapting my play Friends with Guns as a screenplay. I would be writing a new screenplay and a new pilot and, doing things for film and TV with the hopes of actually providing a future for my family.
Sure. Yeah.
We've talked about this a lot. I know that you too would like to be staffed on a TV show. Like I would love to write for TV. So instead of just, kind of splitting my focus with plays, I've been trying to really stick to that. But I'm finding that working on something, a full length anything right now is really hard because my mind is so splintered. And I overnight became, a homeschool parent, which I am not equipped for. And I don't have I value my alone time greatly. So, it's just something that I've really like at first I'm like, I have to do this really well because I don't want my kids. We didn't know how long it would be. They told us 2 weeks at first, but we all knew it would be longer than 2 weeks if they'd be out of school.
Right.
So I was like, okay, I'm responsible for their education now. And that quickly became, we have to do what's right for us. Be gentle with ourselves, be gentle with the kids, all of that. So I'm really focused more on my family than I am my writing. At the same time, I've got stories bubbling up in me, and so they're shorter pieces. Like I wrote a 10-minute Zoom play, a comedy, because I'm like, I need to write a comedy. What about you?
That's great though. Well, look, I think any kind of, you and I have sort of been having this conversation over the past few months about like the realities of the economics of playwriting. And I think like before the coronavirus happened, we both sort of expected this podcast would be a little bit about that, I'm increasingly having conversations with artists who, recognize that what they're doing is like necessary for their own emotional survival. And sometimes the amount of time that they're putting into it detrimental to their economic survival. And the like weird jaggedness of those feelings is so hard, that sometimes to even be very successful in our field does not translate to livable economic success. That's been the case for years, and it's hard. It's hitting all of us very hard. And then when you add this on top of that, you start to feel like, oh my gosh, like is the work that I'm doing like worth it? Can I afford to give it that time? Like what are my skits compared to global pandemic? But like I am finding that like I'm surprised to find that I am like really desperate for that space, that at this moment, like I a little bit I need like to generate money from it, but I'm also like, oh my gosh, like I am I need the relief or space or like process of the art to like work through some of the stuff going on with me.
Yes.
And honestly, I've had a hard time connecting with it. And I don't think it's like I think I am kind of in, like a survival and crisis mode. And so it feels risky to like let the necessary guards down to do the writing, So like, as I'm having like a harder time connecting with what's going on with me in my own work, I am, doing more and more to help other people, connect with theirs, like a big part of what I do is new play development anyway. And so like I'm working with the Ingram New Works playwrights and a cohort of local playwrights in that program. And then I just started working with there is a small theater company here in Nashville, located in East Nashville, that they write and produce these really extraordinary brand new plays for teenagers, new plays written for the teenagers, performed by the teenagers and or youth. And this project I'm working with student writers to like develop a response to the pandemic while it's going on, and then it'll be presented at the end of the month online. And so I'm excited to be working with them. The students' work has been extraordinary so far. We really jump in later this week, like developing them and crafting them. And my job is sort of like to be a lead artist. I'm sort of like leading the writer's room as they like engage with these challenges and questions and their own material. And so like I'm finding a lot of room for that. And that's the stuff that's making me feel sane right now. But I am like a little bit like disconnected from my own work, my own writing.
I really relate to that need to process through writing though. It was funny because like one of the things, because I was like, I can't focus for like these really specific things I'm trying to do in my work right now. I'm going to instead just journal every morning or day, whenever it happens, like whenever I find a moment. Even
that's great though.
Even if it's just like a couple sentences, because I really wanted, we can recognize this is so unlike anything anybody's ever experienced or will likely experience in our lives. And I wanted to document that. I felt like, and I've been trying to encourage actually my 9-year-old as well, not necessarily like, and not at the same level, like, let me analyze my feelings about this, but more like, he'll random things. He'll be like, hey, remember that restaurant that we went to that, I'm like, that one, I didn't think you liked that one. You kind of complained about it when we were there. He's like, no, I did like it. And I want to go back. Like now that he can't, now that this restaurant that wasn't a particular favorite is not, that no restaurant is a possibility right now. He's like, I miss it. I want to go there. I'm like, write it in your journal. Like make a list of the things that you want to go back to, or like that you were looking
That's great. That's so great.
And he hasn't taken me up on it quite yet, but I just keep kind of nudging, like when he mentions something like, oh, I'm sad about this. I'm like, oh, you could write that down. That's something you could write down in your journal or draw a picture about it. And his teachers have been like trying to encourage that as well. And so, I've been trying to take that on for myself, but man, when I got sick, I was sick and I was so sick. And I was like, I'm not doing anything. I couldn't do anything. I'd never had strep before. It's really crazy. And it just hit me really, really hard. So that got derailed and I haven't really found my way back to it. But a big I would say breakthrough for me is that I'm not beating myself up about it. Because so often I'll be like, I'm going to do this thing. And then I don't follow through, which is very familiar. But the other familiar part is the shame and the berating that I do to myself when I don't inevitably follow through. So
sure.
I'm working on letting that go. And I also have been continuing to see my therapist on a biweekly basis via telehealth or something like that. It's a video conference, and yesterday I had my appointment with her, and oh my God, I needed it. It was the perfect timing.
Oh yeah. So, I'm definitely doing. Yeah. I did this today. Like I definitely, that was one of my meetings today. One of the things we talked about, I was like, are you seeing a lot of people right now? Is everybody just like crying at you over video chat? Mm-hmm. And she was expressing how there weren't that many. She had a lot of cancellations last week, and this week it was starting to be more, and then like more of a full schedule next week. And it didn't have to do with comfortability about telehealth. It was about the steps that people are reacting to a crisis of this size. And I totally get that, but like, I feel, I'm so glad that I have that kind of, like support and, space, like, and so far as like the writing goes, I, like because of my background or whatever, I'm always a little bit of I feel like I'm a little bit ashamed of like being a writer as opposed to, I don't know, a factory worker or something. And I like, I'll always kind of have like a weird relationship with it.
Go back. Can you just say a little bit more about that? Because I know your background, but people listening to this, I mean, your parents know your background. And hi, Mom and Dad. I just wanted to introduce myself. I think your son is great. He's awesome. But that's what do you mean by that? Like, because of my background, I feel ashamed of being a writer. And I just think like that's a nugget.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think that and how much I love to talk about this. So thank you for questioning it closely.
Well, we grew up. I will allow you to like skirt it if you want.
I grew up in a really difficult time in Flint, Michigan, and like around really like substantial unemployment and like in real poverty, like the kind of poverty that we don't really talk about. You know what I mean? Like the like documentary poverty. You know what I mean? Like not like poverty, like, oh, those are poor people in a TV show or whatever, but like actual, honest to goodness, like system-wide, citywide poverty. And growing up in that, like it was
like
I'm sorry, what's that?
Like government cheese. Did you have government cheese?
Well, yeah. I mean, yeah.
Yeah. My husband too. And I grew up totally privileged. So,
but listen, you just feel differently about work in that way, right? Like you feel like, okay, what you should be doing is like, you should be making as much as you possibly can. You should have like a job. I mean, like, and I'm sure part of that is like just the like, Midwestern work ethos that like goes, or, like that goes along with that. I understand that, but like having a job in the arts sometimes feels like I am very, very lucky to have that, but also when I am experiencing like economic discomfort or whatever, it's sort of my fault for not having a more traditional job. And I think that's just like that kind of like when you grow up poor, you never really, it doesn't go away. Your relationship to it changes, but it never goes away. And like that kind of like really going through deprivation, you sort of like carry it, Mm-hmm. Anyway, like it causes like a little bit sometimes of like, shame around the work. And I mean, I would say without question, like my own stuff about, well, who really wants to hear my point of view about anything? I think that goes along with it too.
Do you think that's universal? Do you think every writer feels that way?
I think some do.
Because I feel that. I mean, I feel that way all the time. That's like the thing. The thing so often, like when I sit down. I mean, it's not every time, but often when I sit down to write, it's like I have to get past that. and then in order
that sure.
even begin, and it's like a thought. I just have to like keep at bay, like acknowledge it, because it's not going to go away.
No. But that's a kind of resistance that like frequently, that resistance is just like, is actually about your own. I mean, sometimes it's true for me, and sometimes with the writers that I work with, and I don't mean to say it's like necessarily the case for you, but sometimes that sort of resistance is about your defense mechanisms around the thing that you're writing. Like if it is too close or too painful, a easy way to like avoid it is that voice in your head that says, well, nobody wants to hear it anyway, And so like sometimes those things that like you're most resistant of are the ones that you definitely need to be writing, I was kind of trying to get to the idea of like, like the sort of like the personal shame that you bring to it. Like you're talking about, like, does anybody want to hear me? Or, like the economics that I was talking about versus this thing going on right now where people are like feeling a pressure to use the time that they have to like write, like you said, like a magnum opus, and I am hearing from like more and more writers that they are like very worried that they're not, spending their quarantine time like generating content or like working on stuff. And this just feels to me like it could not be farther from like reality. Like this is like a huge society changing traumatic experience that we are all collectively going through. Mm-hmm. And being able to like manage that enough that you can sit down and write whatever play you were working on is fucking crazy. Like, like like I'm fully aware of the fact that I'm like, oh man, I wish I had more time to write and I wish I was more connected right now. But if I was connected, who knows what the fuck I would even be able to write,
Yeah. It feels like, when you're living through something really hard, I have two reactions to it. Like one is, write my way through it because that's my coping mechanism. Like that's a form of therapy for me. And then whatever I write, throw out at the end, or it doesn't become anything, and that's fine. It's what got me through. Or, take a lot of time to kind of process, and then whatever it is that we're like going through now, what we're living through. I mean, I guess I'm just trying to stay as present as possible to the moment, especially as a parent. And like, for me, the opportunity right now, it's like, yeah, we're all stuck together in this house. We all value alone time. Every single member of my family, like all four of us, really cherish alone time, which it's, kind of a little bit more challenging to carve out right now. Yet just finding ways to just be present because, I mean, okay, this is going to sound super dark, but I open up my Twitter feed and every day it's more people talking about loved ones that have died in their lives from this. And so it's, I don't know. I'm just trying to stay present. And also because when my mind goes other places, like, what if this happens? What if that happens? It's just never good. In my world, my anxiety brain, is not a helpful brain. So that's my coping mechanism, I guess. And then in the end, like on the other side, who knows what it's going to look like. See, right now, even it's so hard to have a conversation without my mind jumping to a million places because my brain just went to, what is theater even going to look like after this?
Sure.
And then the next thought is, I truly, honestly believe that theater will survive anything because we want to be together and gather and tell stories and share stories and hear stories. I think that's something, maybe I'm saying that because that's my passion and that's what I love, but I really believe that as human beings, I mean, look what theater's been through, I mean, it might look a lot different, but I don't think
I think you're exactly right. I think that, yes, I think that it probably will look a lot different. And I think that it's like, I will say this. One of the things that scares me right now is the number of people that I'm engaging with that are, I recognize the value of denial as a coping mechanism, or even if not denial, just the desire to like take things small bites instead of like everything all at once. I totally get it. But like there are some necessary realities around our activity that are going to be like really hard for like the larger ecosphere of arts institutions to like absorb without really substantial loss. You know, like I have been working with a mid-sized institution to try to continue to stay open and continue to pay artists, and I know like how hard I know how steep this is right now, and I know people are making like extraordinarily difficult decisions all over the spectrum. You know, like and
my Center Theater Group, which is
I know.
Los Angeles. Yeah, I mean
I know. I mean, like
it's huge. Yeah, I know you're like in the middle of all of that because you work with an institution, but I'm just, you know, I'm
it's awful. I don't know anybody. I know very few people who have not been laid off, furloughed, taken a pay cut, or had cancellations. In a 48-hour period, the number of cancellations that like I suddenly experienced was like you can't even. It's like everybody I know and love got hit the same way very quickly in the worst ways. I mean, like, and we were already like not making enough, and then like cancellations and postponements and everything on top of that, it was just like shocking, and I know that some institutions like don't make it through, and I know many institutions have to really change like how they present the work, but I am like the least optimistic person, but like I agree with you. The thing that I'm craving isn't the play exactly, but the experience of watching the play together. Like we're getting to see stuff online, but I'm wondering if like the content is really like the moment of theater that like I so crave, or if it's everybody in the audience gasping at the same time. Like it's one thing to like watch these living room concerts, but it's another altogether to like go to the festival. You know what I mean?
Right.
And right. I really hope on the other side of this, people end up craving that. But realistically, we will not suddenly be done with this. Like it doesn't end with all of us going back into groups of 4, 5, and 600. We go back slower than that. Groups of 10, groups of 30, different spots in the country having different outbreaks or whatever. I mean, like that's what feels the most realistic, and that's going to change institutional theater for a generation or more. And I know that some people are having these conversations in small ways, and I know that it's sometimes scary to be like, holy shit, like, I don't know what's next. I don't know how we make it through this, but somehow like just putting the conversation out there and all agreeing that we're scared and all agreeing that we don't know what's next feels a little bit safer than being in denial or posting on the internet that everything's going to be okay when we know nothing could be farther from the truth.
Mm-hmm.
Later, I'm going to listen to that, and it's going to sound so goddamn dark, and I'm sorry about that. But I mean, like, I
do wish that I were drinking something stronger than coffee right now. after you've just driven me to drink, and I swore I would drink all this on penicillin.
Right? I feel like we should have done this. We should have definitely done this at happy hour and invited other people, so somebody else could be like, Nate, you're totally wrong. People love theater. They're going to make it in there. Like it's going to happen.
Okay. All right. Well, on that note, or not on that note, but that said, how about that? What is something that I've been surprised by and kind of delighted to see is, just this like jumping in, from theaters. I've already, like, I wrote a 10-minute play last Monday, a comedy called, what is it even called? Zoom mediation in pandemic times.
I love this.
And
where can we see this?
Well, there's I mean, I don't know, it's not, the details aren't fully ironed out, but there's a theater company that they're like, hey, do you have, can I read your Zoom play? And I sent it to them and they're like, hey, we want to do your Zoom play. And I think it's happening this weekend, but
I love that.
Yeah. So it's like things are happening. I'm like, that was really fast. And I wrote it really fast because I just wrote it for my Playwrights Lab, which usually we gather Tuesday nights at ANPF Theater Company in Glendale, California. And this was our first Zoom lab. And we're like, let's see how this goes. There were, I think, 41 of us. The way our lab works is playwrights bring pages and actors read them cold. And TIAS has an incredible ensemble of classically trained actors. And we've been doing this for years now. And it's just like a really great communal thing that we all love a lot. And they're actually the ones who produced The Abuelas here in Los Angeles. And that was a play that I brought into lab. So for our first Zoom one, I wanted to write something like specifically for Zoom because I knew people would be bringing pages from works that they've been working on. But I just had this desire to write something specifically for the medium, And so I had this idea and I wanted it to be funny and I had no idea if it was. And then then Tuesday was our lab and that was the day I got sick. And I was like, I don't know if I can go to lab, but they did mine first. They were very gracious and I got to watch it. And it was, I was so sick, but it worked out. It was so much fun. And I had written it the day before and that morning. And so it was like a really quick thing, which that happens a lot with lab where, you bring pages that day, they're really fresh. But now that this is like the next week, maybe being performed is a really quick turnaround. And then the other thing that I was really surprised to see how quickly they did this was the 24-hour play festival. I don't know if you saw the monologues they did it twice. And it's been really fun to just to watch that and see what people are creating and how, a lot of them are processing the current moment. And a lot of the writers seem to be, processing the current moment.
We're doing, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I just, that's something that's like, I just feel like, because yes, what you said was really heavy and dark. And I also think very truthful. I am such a how can we look at something good that is happening right now? And
well, yeah,
I think it's, is there anything?
There's intense appetite for it. So I was just part of this large community statement. All the institutions in my community all got together to make this large statement about, art is who we are, as a city in Nashville without question, and also how we're surviving this crisis. I mean, we're truly making music for one another and puppet shows and sharing art. And every single one of us in America, I guess, watched Tiger King last week. And we desperately, we need it. Not just to yes, to navigate and make sense of the moment without question, but also to just feel human and connect, And so our group, the company I work for, we've been talking about it for a little while now, and just today are able to. We're doing mini commissions with our alumni, so we've got this huge pile of this huge list of alumni playwrights that have been through the Ingram New Works project, and we're reaching out to some of them with mini commissions for them to write. A monologue or postcard or just kind of response. And then we'll hire a local actor to then turn them around and share them online for a limited amount of time. So not that different really than the 24-hour plays, but it didn't come out of, anything other than the desire to both make sure that money is making it to the hands of artists and local artists who've been hit so hard by this, but also because I was hearing from our core stakeholders, they wanted to hear how our artists were responding. There was they were like, we need to talk about this. Why aren't we, talking about what's out there? And so,
I love that.
We're just using the social channels that are there and our larger network of artists, and we'll see how it goes.
That's really great. That's so nice. It's really awesome to hear that people other than artists themselves are willing to hear from artists and how people are processing this. And
well, yeah, I mean, we my city's relationship with its cultural history is my city is very conversant in its relationship with art. We talk about and Nashville's my adopted hometown, but like we talk about it a lot. It's like the identity of what makes Nashville. And artistic responses are something that I think I have seen happen pretty frequently here. Like, I know there's other cities like that too. It's not unique to Nashville, but after the 2016 election, we participated in that Night of Outrage, that countrywide theater program, the Night of Outrage, where they like challenged local artists to write responses to the moment and then performed them on Inauguration Day. And I just remember that being this like extraordinarily like healing conversation that the artists were having. It was a big live performance and the room was packed, and it was, like individual responses and monologues and scenes. And, like it wasn't just like an opportunity to like shout your politics. It was like actually about like naming and processing the moment, because it felt very much like the country had kind of pivoted and changed a lot right there between November and January. And I feel like we're in that spot again, that like it's okay for us to like want art to heal us a little bit or like soothe us a little bit, but also show us like what's next. I mean, that's an awful lot to put on it, I guess. And I don't know how much you can achieve in a 1-minute monologue, but it's making me feel better to see stuff like that,
Yeah. It's, I find like you're doing a lot of championing. It sounds like right now. Other people.
I told you, it's the only thing that's making me, I'm telling you, like I
was going to say like, I relate to you completely on this because, and in fact, like, right around, the New Year, I was, feeling, whatever, everybody feels that way. Like maybe not everybody, but I love New Year's and I hate New Year's because I'm just, inevitably disappointed in myself for things I didn't do, whatever. Anyway, my point is
whatever. I'll list them later. Whatever.
The thing, no, I'm a perfectionist and I'm a control freak, and so these are all life of learning about myself. And I got a therapist in between Christmas and New Year's, and it's been helping tremendously. But one of the things that, in terms of my anxiety, because I also have anxiety, is that helps me because my anxiety is triggered by things I can't control. So it's really so amazing being a playwright. All these things that are not within my control. I can speak more about that if I don't even know if that would be of interest to anybody or just like really incredibly depressing. But basically, my anxiety is triggered by the very thing I chose to be in life. So I have to find ways to help myself. One of the things I do that helps is I have gotten back into running, and that is like always the best thing. I can't right now because of this, but it's
great.
Anyway, yeah, it's great. But no, helping other people. Like anytime I feel anxiety about my career or anxiety about my writing, or I think a lot of like not this feeling of like, oh my God, I have to write something right now. That's like, I have to be taking advantage of this time. Part of it for me, when I get kind of hooked into that, is I'm seeing what other people are doing and I'm comparing myself, and I'm like, oh, they're going to come out of this with like 5 new plays and I'm not going to have anything to show for it. And how am I going to feel compared to them?
Okay. Don't do that. I don't mean to give you advice or whatever, but that's only gonna like.
You didn't let me finish. That's what that's just gonna happen. That is something that naturally, like human nature, I compare myself to other people, and then what I am getting better and better at, because I'm now 44 years old, almost 45, is that I finally, I see that machinery going and I can stop it. I can stop it and be like, okay, that's not healthy. I'm, they're doing their thing. I'm doing my thing. So it's like, I got to stop that. But the best way for me to stop that, though, like I have tools now that I know that I can reliably rely on, is to then go read somebody else's play and leave them a recommendation on the new Play Exchange. That makes me feel better. It actually makes me feel like I'm doing something, or be like, or I love connecting people, God, right before all of this went down, a friend of mine was telling me that like a theater company had lost rights to a play and they were looking for a new one to slot in, and this is what they were looking for. And I was like, oh, I know somebody who has something that might be really interesting, connecting them. Like anytime I can do something like that, I get out of my own head, and that feeling of like, I've got to make something happen in my career. I've got to make some money. I've got to be able to support my family. And like this, like desperation, if I start feeling that desperation, like I'm not doing enough, I put it down, I set it down, and I go do something for somebody else. And that is like the best thing to help me feel better in any situation. So like I completely relate. And when all of this started happening, I mean, I do have a production at the end of August, and I'm just preparing myself mentally for it to to be canceled. At the beginning of this, I'm like, oh, there's no way that'll get canceled. But now I'm like, well, you know what? It might, or postponed or whatever. But
Sure.
So far I haven't had anything. But when everybody's world premieres and like first productions, like I felt that pain so much. And so, I just went on Twitter and said, hey, if anybody has a play that's been postponed or canceled, reply here and I'll add it to my reading list on the new Play Exchange. Like I'm not a fast reader and I've got 2 kids, but I'll do my best. And I will leave a recommendation, and let's try and get other people to read your stuff. Let's try and get these canceled and postponed plays some love. And that really took off. Like it was crazy. It was like on CNN and in, not on, it was like in a CNN article, and the LA Times.
But it was exactly right. And it's a thing that we all like. What you're talking about is stuff that I think so many of us like really feel, which is like not just like the pain around our own cancellation and postponements, but like seeing it in other people and the way they're reacting. I mean, no one, this isn't because of like some terrible mistakes that were made or some individual mismanagement of a theater. Like we're experiencing an industry-wide crisis, inside a global pandemic, and I mean like the kind of like solidarity. I loved that the way that people immediately responded to that. And Donna worked at Donna Hoke.
She's like, I'll put a list together of all the plays. Cause it got really hard. So many people responded, and then other people were like, adding to it, like trying to amplify it. So, which was what I was hoping for, that it got really confusing. Like you had to like scroll through this. I'm like, I can't keep track of this anymore. And then at the same time, I'm, suddenly like dealing with homeschooling my kids. I'm like, I don't know. All I could do was add to my own list, And so Donna volunteered to
there's such good fucking plays on that list. That list is so amazing.
Yeah. And it's great. It's like, when I'm feeling like, oh God, I can't write. I have a place, all these plays that I can go to and read. And if it's like, okay, I don't have 2 hours right now. I don't have an hour. I have half an hour. I'll even just like, there are a bunch of 10-minute plays on that list. And like, I don't know when this is airing, but I think soonish. And so this might be a good chance right now to kind of promote that list. So, it's a shareable list Donna Hoke made, and anybody can go find it. She might have it pinned on her Twitter page. I can't, I don't know. Email me. We'll find it. I will send it to you. Yeah. But like people can go there. Also, they can contact Donna, and she'll add them to the list if they have, future plays get postponed or canceled. Like playwrights can have their plays added to the list. She's continually adding to that list. It just keeps growing as it's going to. I mean, as this goes on, it will continue to grow.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
And it's like, I don't know, now
the,
it's like this document. It's like an archival document to be able to
but it
see.
feels like the spirit of it. I mean, like not just those are badass, but there are some like seriously good plays on that list. But the spirit of what you did felt a lot of what I'm feeling right now, you know, which is like a kind of like commiseration and solidarity. I mean, like, yeah, yes, there are obviously like disagreements and there's problems with individual institutions. And I mean, like, I get all of that, but like, we are really trying to help each other out in extraordinary ways. The sharing of grants and financial resources. Like, I can't even tell you the number of like email lists I'm on where I'm getting, and we all fucking need them, you know, resources for economic help at this time. You know, I mean, like beyond just like the fund, you know, like, but other like local, state, and federal loans and emergency grants and all that, or the way that we're trying to like help connect each other with work, or companies like, you know, moving money directly to the artists that are currently under commission, or like future productions, all that stuff. I mean, like, we're really, like I said, I don't know anybody that's not in a tough spot right now. And I love the way that we all seem to be like supporting one another. I mean, I'll be honest with you. Like I feel like one of the things going on in this crisis is I'm able to like really see super clearly everybody's coping mechanisms. Like, we're kind of, because we're all experiencing the same trauma, the stuff that we're doing is definitely like a coping mechanism. And I know, so for me, like like helping to amplify other people is like, you know, like sometimes when I'm in trouble, my coping mechanism is to check on other people and make sure they're okay, you know? Yeah. And like, I know that's part of what I'm doing, is like, okay, I am disconnected. And so I'm helping other people to connect. And I as a way of like servicing that. And I get that. But like, I also feel like our activity is like built on that kind of interreliance, you know, that like we really are, we are put in different combinations and cohorts, and we fight to like, you know, apply to be, you know, like in writers groups and all that stuff. And it's because we're all desperate for these like home institutions to help support us. And I love it when stuff happens where like we all support one another, like across those institutions, or no matter where. I mean, like, that was one of the coolest things about your list. It was just like, here are some plays that got canceled everywhere, you know, like, you know, and I love that. I love, no matter like what, you know, like ideological or thematic or like artistic differences we have with one another, we are all out here in like a very difficult field, you know, like experiencing a collective trauma.
Yeah, it is. It's a collective trauma. And I find what I'm feeling really grateful about is that there are so many opportunities to process this moment with each other, whether it's, you know, through the work, like calls for plays, and there's actually calls for plays happening right now. I've, you know, kind of been amazed by that, but it, you know, it's for Zoom plays, or, you know, anything, like people stepping up to make these things happen, but for just conversation. And I've got so many emails now, and I'm sure like everybody does, that I can't stay on top of. I mean, today I had, you know, my kindergartner, he has Zoom classes every morning from 10 to 10:40. And I have to help him with it because, you know, there's a lot of muting and unmuting and, you know, all that sort of thing. So like, I'm managing my kids' Zoom meetings, and then there's like Zoom meetings that I could be on, ones that I need to be on, or ones that are like, hey, let's get to, you know, like, have you done a Zoom happy hour yet?
Oh yeah. Listen, my whole life is Zoom. So it's like Zoom business meetings. And then, you know, like I'm still working with individual dramaturgical client, you know, like I do individual development. And so if you need help with your play and are interested in working on it, you can reach me at nateeppler.com.
Nate's amazing.
But so I do that, and then and then definitely Zoom happy hours.
I've only done one. I've only done one, but
oh,
like,
we're gonna do that. We're gonna have a Zoom happy hour.
We're trying to get our ANPF group together for a Zoom happy hour.
We should do this. Look, just like seeing people's face. Are you not like so worried about your people? I mean, like I'm so worried, like just like seeing people's faces or hearing like, look, I'm worried about your family. I'm worried about your husband being sick right now. But like hearing your voice and hearing you talk about it, it is normalizing to know that the stuff that I'm going through and like, like in the middle of my quarantine, like there are other people who are going through that stuff too. Like you like share it and talk about it. It really matters. And it's like so much better when you can see each other's faces. Now, for the most part, the Zoom happy hours eventually get to a point where we're all crying. But but how is that different than the bar? I mean, like
how is that any different? I don't know. It's I think I texted our ANPF. We still have, for the listeners out there, the Ashland New Plays Festival group that Nate and I were a part of was with Ian August and Victor Lesniewski, and of course Beth Kander was our what champion? I don't know, what is her title? Our moderator, our champion, our liaison. Anyway, we have a text chain.
I think she would be satisfied with our champion. I think that she would be.
I love her.
Yeah.
But anyway, so we've got this text chain, and I was requesting, demanding a happy hour, because they make me laugh so much. I mean, my memories of our time at the Play Festival was really like my stomach hurting with laughter almost that entire week. It was the best. Like, I need my stomach to hurt with laughter again right now, especially. I mean, the bar is set pretty high, but I'll take crying if laughter can't happen. But
we can do both. We'll do both.
Something cathartic. I need a catharsis. I think that's why, it's funny because I was like, I'm gonna write a comedy and in 10 minutes, whatever. This might be so unfunny. This might not work at all. And it's funny I don't even know right now. It's the line between like absurd and comedic and also extremely dark and depressing it's like everything is kind of all the same. They cross over so much in this world we're living in right now. It's hard to know.
I mean, stuff's kind of super weird right now. And so like there's very little stuff that is not both like intensely hilarious, very disorienting, and deeply, deeply sad.
Which is kind of my favorite kind of art, which is weird. Like, I love it when I go see a show and it makes me feel all those things. But then, I'm crying. I don't think there's a day that's gone by that I haven't cried at least a little bit, for some reason.
Yeah, I totally get that. But like, we're talking about like our our reactions to a global pandemic on a podcast about playwriting. That is all kind of absurd. I mean, like it's all sort of like crazy right now. Just like the thought that like we're going through this and it's as big as and intense as it is, and like although it will change us as artists, it hasn't changed the fact that we are artists, right? I think I had it in my head in some way that there would be like some giant global crisis and we would like immediately drop into Mad Max roles. And instead, it's not like that. You know what I mean? My lawyer brother is still a lawyer in the middle of the pandemic. And I'm, still, working for a not-for-profit in the middle of the pandemic. And you and I are still like trying to find time for writing in the middle of the pandemic. And that all seems like both like so crazy and absurd and so like gorgeously human. You know what I mean? I mean, like oh my God, I can't even tell you the number of times I have cried with, at, or like because of somebody at the grocery store. Do you know what I mean? Like it's the only place that we're kind of all going, and just like thanking a grocery clerk brought me and the grocery clerk to tears the other day. I mean, like it's intense. What we're experiencing is intense.
I'm finding too, like it's, I don't think I'm particularly somebody who has a hard time asking for what I need or for help, but I'm seeing it in myself now because everybody is having, in this, and it's really hard. But I had a friend when I was sick, I had a friend offer to bring me soup and that her husband had made. And I, was like thinking to myself how, yes, that would be amazing. And I would absolutely have that soup, but I didn't want to put her out. And I live I live on the other side of town. Granted, this is the best time to drive around to Los Angeles. Nobody's on the road. But anyway, she, there was like a little back and forth on the text, like, only if you're sure, like, are you really sure? And she's like, yes, we want to get out of the house. So I was like, okay. And then she left me the soup and cookie bars, homemade cookie bars for my boys, and Meyer lemons from her tree. And it made me cry. I felt so loved. And I told her, and it's making me cry right now just thinking about it. But it just, she told me, she's like, I want to do that. And then I have offered, to do things for people. Like, I had a friend who wanted lemons and we don't have a lemon tree, but I have a friend who has a lemon tree, and I was trying to get lemons for this other friend, and I finally, I got all this, I've just been like, somebody else brought me lemons too. And so I have all these lemons and I wanted to share them with her. And she's like, it's okay, I already got lemons. But I found myself like really disappointed that she had already gotten lemons elsewhere, because I really want to make a difference for somebody else too. And so I'm just, yesterday, I asked a friend of mine who's in New Jersey, who she tested positive for COVID-19, and she's on the recovery side. She's now recovered from it. And her symptoms, she never had a fever. And which is an interest to me, because my husband doesn't have a fever. I was like, oh, could this really be it if you don't have a fever? And she's like, well, I didn't have a fever and I just tested positive. So I'm like, okay, so we're just going to be ultra careful. So she told me, she's like, you can't go to the grocery store because you could be a carrier, you could be infected. Are you hearing that ding? I'm sorry, hang on. Wait, shoot. Okay. Anyway, so I was like, okay, well, we need groceries, and I don't want to ask somebody to have to go grocery shopping for me, because it's not just like go to the store. Now it's like potentially get infected. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, it's just one of those things. But I have a friend who'd been offering to grocery shop for people. So, and then also my husband's aunt lives in the house behind our house. And so, she had been offering, but she's a nurse. She's a nurse and she's working, and she's, in the thick of it. She works in a cardio unit. So she's not treating COVID-19 patients, but she's,
but still
going to the hospital, going to Cedars-Sinai every day, and, is scared and she's exhausted. And, I didn't want to ask her to go grocery shopping for us, but I did, because Bob was like, no, she wants to help. So I was like, okay. So I asked her, she's like, send me your list. I'll go either on my lunch break or after work. And I'm like, no, I can't. I really can't ask you to do this. This is like, and it's just this whole thing. And she's like, I want to. And then last night she brought, after her shift, like she brought all the groceries to the front porch. She tore off the exterior bags, and like threw them away for me. And she's like, we're being extra careful. Right. So, putting groceries away is a whole process. But anyway, my point of all this is like, it was hard. It was really hard to let somebody help me, even though I so desperately was like, I want to help other people. And I know if I'm feeling that way, and if somebody's offering, like if I offer to help somebody, it means I really want to help it right now, especially. Like it's not just I'm being polite. So I think that I'm trying to trust that. So if anyone asks, like offers to help me, I'm trying to say yes, because that's what I would want others to
You are totally, look, believe me, you are like singing my song. It is extraordinarily difficult to ask for help when you know that what you're asking for will be difficult for the other person, will be a burden, whatever, right? Or a risk for them. I mean, like any of that. And usually the kind of help that a person has to ask for is that kind of stuff. And like, I hate to ask for help. Oh my gosh, it just tears my heart out to like, ask for help when I need it. It's so hard for me. But I do love to like give help, and I would be mortified if somebody didn't want to ask. I mean, I would do. Oh my gosh, I would do, and I don't even like you, Stephanie. I would do anything for you. I would help you however you needed. You know, and like I know that like I mean, like I talk about this in therapy. I know that I'm wrong. I know that like help and like relying on other people is only like a real problem when it's really asymmetrical. You know what I mean? But like the truth is that asking for help and giving help is one of the ways that we remember we are like interdependent with one another, you know? And like right now, like the thought that somebody is helping you and you are helping somebody else, or you're helping somebody with a lemon hookup. I'm not sure that I totally followed that story, but I guess you have like an illegal lemon farm or something. I'm not sure, but like that, like, isn't that like really necessary right now when we're all like
lemons,
when we're all like completely isolated, and forgetting how we like really desperately need one another. Like, I think it's okay to like remind ourselves that we do have to be able to do that. Yes, don't go to the store, get somebody to go for you. Like, don't put other people at risk, but also like let people who are willing to do it help you, because otherwise like we only get through this, like, no question, we only get through this together. It's like your NPX list, right? Like those plays all just like go into the ether and we don't get to see them, and they all kind of like fade away or like exist on, you know, like somebody's Facebook page about like tonight would have been our opening night or tonight would have been our closing night. But like you memorialize them and put them together, and we become reliant on each other. And that's the way that kind of stuff like survives and like and echoes out. I feel very strongly about that. I you know, like I consciously I so desperately want to connect, you know, and sometimes the way to do that is to like reach out and say, I need help, you know?
Yes. Yeah.
See, we laughed and we cried and we talked about lemons.
You know, you were just, I love talking to you because I feel like you can reach into my brain and pull out my thoughts and then speak them in a way that I cannot give words.
Well, I'm
finding a hard time speaking and finding words to say.
Well, I love talking to you because you ask me the kind of questions that other people usually let me slide on. And so I appreciate that.
I think I only did that once. I should have done it more.
So we have come to the end of our, what I'm sure was very entertaining podcast.
Oh my God. Have we been talking for over an hour?
We've been talking for, just around an hour.
We did it again.
So like, okay, so here's the deal, right? Like, we're definitely, I'm sure we'll be the only people that listen to this besides my parents. What do you want to tell you a week or two from now?
Oh God, I just saw these messages from Andy asking us to turn our headphones down because he was getting feedback. Whoops, sorry, Andy.
Wait, is that true? This has messages? Wait, oh my gosh. Oh, I didn't see that. Oh, yep, there we are. So it's been an hour of feedback.
The thing that I'm laughing about is that what people won't know is that you and I recorded a podcast like a year ago. I don't know if it was a year ago. It feels like 10 years ago. But anyway, we did this.
It was 10 years ago.
And it never aired. It never got put out there because we were so
That's
awful.
right. We did this
so
before.
boring.
It was so boring. That's right. It was so boring that they never aired the podcast. And now this one, I think, was definitely less boring, but apparently has the sound of feedback throughout.
We're so good at this. Oh my God, I take full blame. Because I'm just really good at that. It's my fault. Everything's my fault.
Do you have any advice for your future self or wise words to wrap us up? No.
Absolutely not.
Okay.
Future self. I don't know what to say. I don't know. I think that all I can say is like the best thing is if one of my kids says builds a bed in the living room floor and says, "Mommy, stop what you're doing and come lie down with me," then do it.
That's really good.
That happened yesterday.
Super good. That's really good. It's specific, but it's also a metaphor. It's super good.
Oh my God, I'm so happy to have gained your approval. That makes me very happy. What about you?
Oh gosh, I don't know. I mean, like definitely the kid thing about the building the bed, definitely that thing, but also like metaphorically, and then I think I would tell me to like make sure like be conscious about making space for your own experience. You know, that like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't mean like, 15 minutes of freaking out every day or whatever, but like making room where you're not just like surviving it, but you're also like processing as best you can, and like being conscious of that.
That's great. I approve of that.
I also have your approval. See, this is a good conversation.
You have my approval. That's good advice for me too. I will apply that to my life today.
I am really glad to do this, and I am really like delighted to get any chance to talk to you for real. I'm a huge fan of your work, but I think you're great. And we will have a happy hour soon. Yes.
Yes, please.
Thanks for listening. Ashland New Plays Festival Play for Keeps podcast is produced in beautiful Ashland, Oregon by me, Andy Neal, and Cara Quinn Lewis, with written content edited by Carol Florian. Many thanks to all our supporters and ANPF members who help support new works for the stage. Visit us online at ashlandnewplays.org. We're also on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. Help us spread the word, like, follow, share, and subscribe. I'm your host, Andy Neal. Thanks for listening to the Ashland New Plays Festival Play for Keeps podcast.